Welcome, my name is Matt, aka Road Jedi 88. We are getting into Star Wars, Galaxy of Heroes, mods, Greedo, and hit the brakes because I have heard a lot of first-time movie reactors to A New Hope laugh about how nobody in the cantina cared that Han shot and killed him. Two major things to know about Greedo. Read in the books, starting with Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. He goes that far back. In fact, in my walkthroughs I've been doing for Star Wars Bounty Hunter, I've been half suspicious one of the bounties we might have picked up could have possibly been Greedo's dad. Or someone related to him. Because we picked up a Rodian in that game, wanted by Jabba the Hutt, which was interesting to me because the Bounty Hunter game takes place 10 years before Attack of the Clones, probably even a little bit before the Phantom Menace, in truth, because this is before he gets contracted to do the Camino and thing, with the clone army stuff. But what made it interesting to me when I picked up that bounty and I saw who wanted that Rodian, it was Jabba the Hutt. Well, Jabba the Hutt owned a Rodian family as a slave. I got a few videos coming out. Alright, so in the Phantom Menace, when you get to see a little bit of Anakin Skywalker in his alone time, and I think maybe a little bit more so within the Star Wars Episode 1 journals, specifically Anakin Skywalker, because in it, Anakin Skywalker will talk about some of his friends, as I recall correctly. It's been a little while since I read it, but one of his friends who lived in the slave quarters with him was Greedo. Greedo started off just like Anakin. He started off as a slave. There is a deleted scene of the Phantom Menace that you can find where Greedo accuses Anakin for cheating in the pod race. And they get in a little bit, young boys tussle, fist, little wrestling fight over the matter. Qui-Gon had to break it up. Like, all right, Anakin, you want to be a Jedi, you got to be better than this, This is a little thing. But the thing with Greedo, why I say hit the brakes, cut him a little slack for one. He was still considered friends with Anakin. He was jealous. And when he saw Anakin be freed because of his skill sets, well, think about it. That would affect any kid, wouldn't it? Anyone who doesn't want to be a slave, doesn't want to be in that lifestyle, and they get to see one of their friends be able to have a chance to have their freedom because they use their skills. Their own skills is what let them have their freedom. They were seen with value and worth, the freedom. Well, Greedo spends his whole life literally trying to impress his slave owners in ways, which was Jabba the Hutt in this case. He spent his whole life trying to prove that he was worth a value, that he was worth something. Always trying to find a way to hopefully maybe be able to have his freedom. Now, he did become a bounty hunter, but locally. He was a bounty hunter for Jabba, local to Tatooine. He wasn't he really wasn't even allowed to stretch out far. You're not going to read about him in any of the other books regarding bounty hunters. Unless, of course, they come across Tatooine, then they run into him. But he basically, Jabba would kind of send him out on certain bounty missions, catch certain people who might owe him money. Basically kind of strong arm them, well, mostly. But then when Han in A New Hope was coming back from a bad smuggling run, him and Chewbacca were hiding out in that cantina, trying to figure out what they were going to do next. Because they were on a smuggling run for Jabba, and as you hear Han point out to Jabba, he got boarded. He had to dump what he had, to save his butt. And yeah, like as if Jabba didn't understand that happens. Of course he does, but he's also a gangster. He doesn't give a damn. He wants his money or the product back, one of the two. And obviously Han was in a situation where it just was not going to happen. So, that's why we see Han and Chewbacca in the cantina. They're trying to figure out what they're going to do. They got lucky that old Ben runs into Chewbacca. And it's crazy because I don't think that when Lucas started writing out A New Hope that he would ever come around to a point where there's a little history between old Ben and Chewbacca. Because Chewbacca had a little history with the Jedis during the Clone Wars. But that aside, Jabba sent Greedo to get Han. And there was a little bit of a deal Greedo was trying to get Jabba to make to him that if he could get Han, he could bring him in, that he would be allowed some kind of reward, preferably his freedom. As I recall, I might be a little off on the details, so don't take all my words on this one. But he was expecting an opportunity to kind of move up from where he was in getting Han. And a lot of people on Tatooine, they know who Greedo was. He's lived there his whole life. He grew up in the slave quarters. They've known him to be a slave. They've known him to be always on a fight to try to either get his freedom or prove his worth at something. And Han was his kind of golden ticket opportunity. Han shoots him, and all the people you see in the cantina, you can go back to the Star Wars Tales of Something books, specifically Tales from the Mos Eisley Cantina. In that book, they talk about the incident of old Ben chopping off that wanted criminal's arm off. The guy that was bragging about having several death warrant sentences on about a dozen systems. I walk into a bar and brag about all my crimes. But, I mean, that guy clearly was intoxicated. If you're trying to lay low, you're just piling up more warrants on yourself at some point. Doing crap like that. But yeah, there were witnesses about that testified, journal, documented of the witnesses to that incident. But then there were also the testimonies of Han shooting Greedo in this book. And some characters, maybe some of them didn't really care. But some were a little scared about these two incidents. Like, oh gosh, maybe I should get the hell out of here. They don't act like it in the scene. But I mean, you don't want to startle up any unwanted attention with sudden movements. If you're scared about something popping off against you after it's happened twice. I mean, you want to keep as less attention on you as possible if you're going to sneak out. But even more so, there are some characters, as I recall, it's been a while since I read this, but there were some who actually kind of felt bad for Greedo. They knew what he was there for. They knew what he was trying to do, or what his goal in his life was. They understood it. So, Like I said, I'd be careful about jumping too quick to either being mad at Greedo for going after Han. Of course, none of us wanted to see Han be killed or taken into custody for Jabba, which eventually does happen anyways by Boba Fett, eventually. But to immediately assume that Greedo was just hardcore villain would be a little. I feel like it's a little unfair to him because he was just simply trying to find his worth. He was just trying to find his value, his worth. He started his life off with Anakin as a slave. He got to see someone be able to have their freedom because of their talent and their worth. And he spent his whole life practically depressed and fighting to try to figure out what his value is so that he could have his freedom. And Han took that away from him. So it's kind of a sad backstory for Greedo, in my opinion. Like, without that backstory, awareness, yeah, it's easy to be like, oh, crap, just another bounty hunter. No, nobody in this community cares about this guy getting shot. But you'd be wrong. Read these books. There is actually a number of backstory situations regarding Greedo. And it actually kind of brings a sense of empathy or sympathy for the guy in a unexpected way. It's definitely not something you would expect you to find yourself in with him, but it did for me. He was just simply trying to do a job, and he was just simply trying to find his worth and hopefully be able to move up from where he was. That was his interest, and it was frustrating to him. He spent his life just battling that brick wall. But going on to his mods. So he basically goes his whole life hoping to be able to do the kind of the same thing Anakin did, his childhood slave quarters friend did, being able to have his freedom by showing what his talent and what his worth is, and it just never played out for him. And his opportunity to be able to take Han in, there's no guarantee that Jabba would have followed through on his promise to him, but in his mind, that was his opportunity to finally get his freedom. If you go to the swgoh.gg online website, and as well as so swgoh.gg recommends making this attacker character be modded with critical chance and critical damage. If you go to my first video to my mods playlist in my YouTube channel, I definitively define the different types of characters, the role positions, as well as the various different types of mods and what it is we are doing with these mods. So Greedo is an attacker. Naturally, he already has speed and offense. It's kind of in his character for the fighting in the squad. It's just in his nature. But the mods, critical damage, critical chance. Now, chance is a gambling word. It's a thing of statistical odds. There's no guarantee of anything, but you add critical to that wording. And now you've increased his odds that when he attacks, his hits will hit. You add critical damage. Well, now he's going to really do damage. He's not only going to hopefully hit someone, but he is going to attack like a tank with a tank-like punch. It's basically what we have done. So, that is Greedo's mod. Subscribe to the channel, like the videos, comments, questions, suggestions down below. And thank you for following. May the Force be with you.